Cowboys 40, Giants 37. This game didn't feel like it was trending this way, Chris, and this is kind of the theme of week 2 is like a lot of games that kind of started slowish and then really exploded at the end. That was absolutely the case here with this overtime win for the Dallas Cowboys. Let's talk about Dallas first here. What were your impressions of the offense and just the Cowboys as a whole in this game?
So the first thing that stuck out to me specifically for Dallas on the receiving side was that we finally got to see George Pickens getting involved with the offense. I mean, 28.6% air yard share, 9 targets, and also seeing him get more involved in the red zone. Because in week 1, while yes, there were a couple of targets downfield for Pickens, the hope would be that a lot of that usage would continue once the Cowboys got into scoring position and wouldn't just continue to be the CeeDee Lamb show once they got into scoring position. But seeing him also have 5 red zone targets, he comes down with one in the end zone. So while it wasn't a stellar day from a box score standpoint, at least seeing the proof of concept there, seeing Dak Prescott have that rapport with him downfield, I think that's at least something that most fantasy managers should be able to at least leave this game or this week 2 performance with some sense of confidence as we move into week 3 and beyond. So while I'm not at least super happy about this performance from George Pickens, I would say at the very least, I'm happy to see there's a wide receiver 2 or at least potentially some more upside there for him as the Cowboys continue to roll.
I thought there were some encouraging signs from Pickens. You probably wanted a bigger game, but look, you got away with the touchdown, 68 yards. I thought a couple things that stood out to me just watching Pickens a little bit in isolation. Dak kind of missed him on like a go route win that he had. He kind of floated the ball when maybe you could have drove it. That was like sort of in the middle portion of the game, and then it floats up there. It allows the Giants DB to recover after Pickens gets open vertically. There's another point too where it's like some of these slant wins. Then that to me last year, whereas Pickens took a real big step against press man coverage, winning quickly, getting into his routes against press man coverage on slants. You saw some of that in this game. So it's definitely an encouraging, I think, step forward for Pickens. And when the schedule gets lighter, I think when things sort of coalesce around this offense, because they are adding like a lot of new things here, Chris, a lot of these like motions and shifts are a little bit more prevalent in this version of with Brian Schottenheimer than it was with Mike McCarthy. So I'm definitely willing to say that like it might get better for Pickens throughout the course of the year. But as the guy who had George Pickens as like the player I want in every draft and called him like the most mispriced wide receiver for most of the offseason, I'll admit that I was a little tight at times in this game. I was like, is this really like we're going to get George Pickens like sacrificial X receiver here? But we end with 9 targets. Obviously everybody's target totals inflated in this game. Yeah. But at the same time, because of the overtime and everything like that. But yeah, I definitely think there's a good amount of optimism for this one coming out of it with George Pickens. I will say, like, we got to maybe dial back the Jake Ferguson tight coverage seam routes for the Dallas Cowboys. Like, dude, I know Dak loves the seam routes with the tight ends, which is why there's like always a fantasy relevant sort of tight end in Dallas. But those plays to me have not been all that prevalent so far.
Yeah, there's not a tight window throw that Dak will see that he doesn't want to try and press the ball into. So I can totally understand where a lot of those passes, I would prefer them to go to a guy with a wide area catch radius like Pickens. And we've seen him operate in those contested catch situations in the past when he was with Pittsburgh. So hopefully more of those targets go his way in the future. But at least for week 2, we're happy with what we got.
No question. I will say the big winner coming out of this game to me is that like Javonte Williams shows week 1 was not a fluke. So yes, through 2 weeks, Javonte Williams is averaging just over 20 half PPR points per game. He's played 74.8% of the snaps, 77.4% share of the running back touches. Just 12.1% of his carries have gone for 0 or negative yardage. Now, he did lose 1 touch to Miles Sanders inside the 5-yard line, which Sanders popped that like kind of goal line touchdown in. But still, you're seeing the stats on the screen right now. 18 carries, 97 yards, 6 for 33, and a touch as a receiver. I mean, it's just like, and I'm certainly in this group, and I'm going to take the L on it if he continues to play like this over the course of the year. This is like a feature back in an offense that we like, that absolutely no one wanted to draft in fantasy football. And Javonte has been a really, I think it's not just like BS production, some of it is because the offensive line's been giving them a lot of push. They averaged the most yards before contact per attempt in week one, did the Dallas Cowboys. And while I think the Giants pass rush gave the Cowboys tackles some issues in this game, Dak was definitely having to go into chaos mode a few more times than you'd like. The run game still was pretty productive with Javonte Williams, just kind of being a steady Eddie force in the ground game, Chris.
Yeah, and I think going back to the offseason, I don't think that it was poor process for us to try and shy away from a guy like Javonte Williams. Because think about all of the stuff that we heard about him. It was the contract, or I'd say the lesser contract relative to the other free agent running backs that were out there on the market. They bring in a guy like Miles Sanders, who, well, I wouldn't say Miles Sanders was a world beater or anything like that from a rushing standpoint, but they bring in a veteran with a similar track record in order to compete with him. And then, of course, Jadon Blue that they wind up drafting has some of the pass catching role that you would think would wind up or have Javonte Williams come into having a, let's say, a 3-man committee at best for this offense. But now in week one, seeing all of that shift, Blue is a healthy scratch. It's really just the Javonte Williams show for the past couple of weeks. And to your point, yeah, over 75% of the team's totes so far. That's not something we could predict given the breadcrumbs that the Dallas Cowboys were providing us throughout the offseason. So I'll definitely take the L on that because I was also in the same boat. But I'm kind of looking at this as a good process, but bad results for a lot of people that just wanted to avoid that situation, just given where we saw things headed given the offseason information.
Yeah, like could we have gotten one positive camp report on Javonte Williams?
We didn't even get one. I don't even remember one.
Could have got just one, just one. Yes, and as Chris mentioned, Jadon Blue's next NFL game will be his first. Let's flip over to the New York Giants here, who, I mean, if Russell Wilson probably hearing all week how, man, Brian Daboll can't wait to go to Jackson Dart. He's like not confirming on Sunday that Russ is the starter in week 2. I mean, Russ was certainly not perfect in this game, but 450 yards, 3 touchdowns, a ton of vertical shot plays. Yes, obviously to Malik Neighbors, who had 13 targets for 167 yards and 2 touchdowns. What an absolute baller. We got that go route that I couldn't wait to see that. You know, I've been waiting to see that Russell Wilson to Malik Neighbors go route. We saw it in this game. Of course, Russell Wilson also threw the interception on a go route as well. You live by the moon ball, you die by the moon ball. But Wan'Dale Robinson, I mean, talk about like Harmon has to take an L. I'm so mean to Wan'Dale Robinson, like probably maybe unnecessarily. He goes out here for 8 for 142 and a touchdown on 10 targets. So, yeah, shout out to Wan'Dale Robinson. I'm a jerk, and I will own the L on this one because, man, Wan'Dale had some really impressive catches in this game.
Well, I would say from your standpoint, being the wide receiver guru that you are, it's just Wan'Dale doesn't play the type of honorable ball from a wide receiver standpoint that we would love to see. Because in this game, 16.2 air yards per target for Wan'Dale. Like, are we serious right now? Is this the same Wan'Dale Robinson that we've drafted in the past to be the essentially PPR scam where you get the 8 for 88 or something along those lines? I mean, this was a completely different receiver from a usage standpoint. And I'm with you. I think that seeing Russ cook and seeing less pressure in his face and allowing him to operate a bit more downfield was more or less the thing that the Giants were hoping to get out of Russ. And I think he always has those types of games in his back pocket because I remember when he faced my Bengals last year when he was with Pittsburgh, you get those situations where, okay, you're facing a team with I would say a modest pass rush or let's say league average pass rush at best, but their coverage unit is so poor, you have these type of jailbreak situations for a guy like Russ who can take advantage of poor coverage units downfield. So looking ahead at their schedule, I don't know how many other chances we're going to get to see Russ do that type of damage against another secondary. But for right now, if you've got Malik Neighbors on your roster, you're happy with what you've got.
Yeah, so just to go back to the Wan'Dale Robinson air yards point, Wan'Dale Robinson had 162 air yards in this game. Last year he averaged 82 air yards per game. So he like basically doubled up his 2024 total in this one game. And I will say I was pretty surprised because I thought the Cowboys defense played well in week 1. I thought they kind of gloved it up from a zone coverage perspective, but Dak was really able to Russell Wilson was definitely able to pick more spots in it than Jalen Hurts was. And we'll obviously talk about the Eagles later. One other note from this game too, backfield usage flipped late in this game. According to Jacob Gibbs, New York Giants week 2 backfield split in the second half and overtime. Snap rate was 56% to Cam Scatabo, 34% for Tyron Tracy. Rush attempts 6, Tracy 1. So I don't know that we have like a lot of takes there, Chris, but that's definitely, and like I'm not rushing to play either in fantasy football, but it's definitely a situation to monitor going forward.
Yes, and I think if they drafted Scatabo and they're sitting on their roster, they saw the -3 in the box score after week 1 and they tried to drop him, or they're thinking about dropping him after week 2, just hold on. That's where the overreactions from week 1 can kind of force us into poor decisions. So I would say if you have Scatabo, if either of them, I'm holding for right now, but I'm not really in a rush to start either of them, to be quite honest. Especially don't they play the Chiefs next week, if I'm remembering right? So it might be tough out for the Chiefs, or not for the Chiefs, rather for the Giants.
All right, let's get to the next game here that we really care about. Bengals 31, Jaguars 27. Chris, we got to start with the Cincinnati Bengals and the unfortunate injury news coming out of this game. Joe Burrow is believed to have a turf toe with torn ligaments and is expected to be out several weeks, according to Jeremy Roush of Fox 19 over there. Give us the State of the Union, Chris. How did it feel? I mean, I'm sure it felt bad to see Burrow go down, but what did the offense feel like with Jake Browning in the mix there?
It was an absolute roller coaster. I want to take everybody back. I want to say this was the 2023 season, and it was Jake Browning starting, and Jamar Chase got banged up during that game, and I don't think he wound up finishing it. And it was the game where they played against the Vikings and had the T. Higgins windmill dunk for a touchdown. Absolute bonkers game. This felt like that. It felt like there was no hope, but then they get close, they pull things within arm's reach, and then it feels like the game's going to slip away, and they wind up pulling out the victory. So while I'm happy that the team won, it's just, how is this offense going to operate in the future? Where, yes, for folks that have Jamar Chase on their roster, seeing him have 16 targets in this game, 14 receptions, and be able to operate this team's wide receiver 1, that's great. But for anybody looking to T. Higgins, and even for Chase Brown, I mean, this offense operates best with Joe Burrow under center. I don't think I'm breaking any news here with that, but it's just the other pass catchers that typically get involved and come along for the ride when Joe Burrow's understanding that we now have to worry about. We saw the lack of, I'd say, in sync that Browning had with T. Higgins, because he wasn't able to hit him on those outbreakers and down the sideline. So I do have some general concern about this offense, and of course, looking at their upcoming schedule, I'm seeing multiple losses after a 2-0 start. So happy for the win. We won the battle, but we might have lost the war here. So we'll see. Hopefully, Joe Burrow will be back sooner rather than later.
Yeah, hopefully it's just a few weeks. He doesn't have to go on IR. It doesn't sound like he's going to avoid surgery, so that's good. But in terms of the Bengals offense with Jake Browning, you mentioned that we've seen this before. And part of what we saw in that 2023 season, I think we saw just a little bit of it today, but obviously once they have a full week to implement a game plan, we'll see it even more. This offense starts to, and Zach Taylor and these guys start to push all the buttons that people love, like getting under center, more motion, more play action. All these things that, are proven efficiency boosts for fantasy football players. Specifically with Jamar Chase, I think he's the one that will obviously avoid any sort of big fall off here. I don't know if I feel the same way about T. Higgins, of course, as you mentioned. I think he's going to take some dip here. But that being said, this offense does remain viable with Jake Browning because he allows them to push those buttons. And I know it's always funny when we get to the well, why don't they do this with Joe Burrow? It's because Joe Burrow doesn't want to do this stuff. He wants to get into shotgun. He wants to point out matchups and stuff. That being said, if you're looking for the silver lining here, I think Chase Brown, when they are able to play that way with Jake Browning, they're able to marry the run and pass game a little bit better. It feels a little bit less siloed. So there's a chance that Chase Brown, just from a rushing efficiency perspective, could actually improve here over the next few weeks if Jake Browning remains viable. But obviously, of course, it's never good. I don't mean to say it's good to lose your starting quarterback, but I think we've seen with Browning under center, the bottom doesn't totally fall out. It feels kind of not to say the bottom is falling out in Jacksonville, but vibes are a little weird, right? Don't you feel as if the vibes are a little strange in Jacksonville right now? We mentioned that Brian Thomas Jr. Was our bust of the week here after 54.7% share of the air yards, targeted twice in the end zone, but he drops the pass on 4th down. He was just multiple brutal moments going over the middle of the field. And like I said, that's a key portion of this offense that has to get corrected. But it was just he's afraid of contact. He's afraid of getting hit. He's alligator arming some passes. He's coming up short. You also have Liam Cohen I don't think this stuff matters that much. It tends to get blown out of proportion, but like yelling at Trevor Lawrence about like put it on his chest, put it on his chest.
Yeah.
For the pass that he was kind of high on De'Ami Brown. De'Ami Brown also drops a pass in the end zone because of an injury on the other side of the ball. Chris, this is from NFL Pro. Travis Hunter did not play a defensive snap until cornerback Jerrion Jones was injured late in the first quarter. Then Hunter finished the game with 42 snaps on offense, 37 on defense, 6 in week 1. He had a defensive pass interference penalty that I thought was a little on fourth down.
I'll take it.
The Bengals game I know you'll take it, buddy. Kept the Bengals game-winning drive alive. But obviously, this decreased his usage on the offensive side of the football. So I don't know. It's just it's a new coaching staff. Obviously, there's some things that are getting ironed out here, but certainly, like, if you expected the Jags passing game to just like get running right off the rip, that's not what's happened here so far in 2025.
I think if this was a different quarterback, we wouldn't have the same level of consternation regarding the Jaguars and just their entirety of their offense, because I thought throughout at least the 3-ish quarters, a lot of the stuff that Liam Cohen was having Trevor Lawrence execute was actually, I thought it was pretty interesting, honestly. I mean, the screen passes to Travis Etienne, also seeing Bashal Tutin operating out of the backfield as a receiver, and of course the shimmy that he used in order to get into the end zone. I thought that was pretty sick as well, even though of course that was like gut-wrenching at the same time. But of course the pass game distribution, I mean, we talked about the lack of work or production from Brian Thomas Jr., but then of course we saw Brenton Strange getting involved, De'Ami Brown, Parker Washington, guys that typically we would have zero interest in from a fantasy standpoint. So kudos, I would say some kudos to Liam Cohen for getting some of his other pass catchers involved and showing that there is some level of productivity to this entire pass game offense. But of course, it's the Trevor Lawrence of it all that we keep coming back to. I mean, it's just another game where, I mean, his pass completion, completion percentage is like hovering around 60%. Of course, from an efficiency standpoint, he's not really getting there. Took at least 1 sack, but he threw the 2 interceptions. Could have been a third if the ball hadn't have hit the ground. So it's just this up and down play from Trevor Lawrence. Whereas if this was, let's say, a rookie quarterback or even just a younger quarterback that we had some level of hope for, we might look at this entire team and this entire outing for the Jaguars against the Bengals and say, oh, okay, well, still, it's the second game for Liam Cohen. Oh, okay, it's still a young quarterback, but now because we've had these high hopes for Trevor Lawrence, because we've put him at this type of pedestal, and of course we look at Liam Cohen as one of the more progressive pass game coordinators, like game designers in the league. All of it does tend to put this extra emphasis on what we see out there on the field for the entire offense. So I am trying to do like what you're saying and try not to take too much of this stuff to heart, because I do think better days will be ahead for him. But it's just, especially with this type of loss where you go up against the Bengals backup quarterback and still don't come away with the win, it has to be all the more concerning for Liam Cohen and the rest of this offense.
Yeah, this is one of those games from Trevor Lawrence where if you're a big Trevor defender or you're a big Trevor hater, like there's some evidence for both sides in this, because like if you're a Trevor Lawrence backer, you're going to point to some of those Brian Thomas Jr. misses. You're going to point to the De'Ami Brown dropping the pass in the end zone. I think there was a couple like really nice plays for Trevor Lawrence in this game, but the 2 interceptions, especially I think the first one was just like, come on, dude.
Come on, man.
You can't be this deep into the league and like still making those mistakes. So and again, it's just like the bouts of inaccuracy. He's just like not a consistently accurate quarterback. So we'll see if Cohen can continue to get this thing integrated. And I mean, yeah, that's one thing that I think maybe I overlook at times with Liam Cohen last year with the Bucs, is that like he was already being dropped on top of an offense that was successful the year before. Like this is more of a full course remake here. So it might take, and we're going to talk about this with the Bears too. It might take till like the back half of the season till everything feels a little bit more cohesive, because we're not quite there. Just last thing on this game before we transition, running back touches update. With Tank Bigsby officially out of the mix, Travis Etienne leads the way with 17, Bashal Tutin with 10, LaQuint Allen, the snap-eating, pass-blocking back with 2 touches as well. So I think Etienne, as long as this usage keeps up, is an every-week starter in fantasy football, and Bashal Tutin's a guy that is like a must-hold going forward